On September 17, 2025, the world watched as tectonic shifts in diplomacy and security began unfolding. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a strategic mutual defense agreement. The treaty declares that an attack against either nation shall be considered an attack against both. That simple phrase marks a major departure from traditional bilateral defense arrangements. Pakistan, the only Muslim-majority nation with an established nuclear arsenal, has long been a critical player in South Asia. Under the Pact, Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Asif indicated that Islamabad might extend its nuclear deterrence, its so-called nuclear umbrella, to Saudi Arabia under certain conditions. What does this mean in practice? First, it means Saudi Arabia is no longer merely relying on traditional alliances, many of which have been mediated or guaranteed by the United States for its defense posture. It means Riyadh is betting on a more autonomous and perhaps assertive approach. Second, it signals to other regional players that security guarantees are being reconfigured. India, for example, has already voiced concern, given its tense relations with Pakistan. Analysts warn that Indian defense and foreign policy will have to take this new pact into account in every calculation. And third, the timing is critical. The agreement comes shortly after Israeli strikes targeting Hamas leadership in Qatar, an event that shocked many in the Arab world and raised questions over whether traditional security partners, especially the U.S., remain dependable. Meanwhile, at the United Nations, the U.S. cast yet another veto, a sixth, against a resolution demanding an immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza. 14 out of 15 UNSC members voted in favor. Only the United States stood alone in opposition. The resolution described the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as catastrophic and called for lifting all restrictions on aid access. This veto intensified the sense among many nations that U.S. policy in the Middle East is increasingly disconnected from international pressure, from human rights concerns, and from popular sentiment. While Washington justifies its position largely on Israel's right to defend itself and the need to address Hamas, critics say the U.S. is losing diplomatic capital and moral authority. China is also stepping into view in this changing landscape. Chinese diplomats at the UN condemned U.S. vetoes and framed their position as one rooted in international law, humanitarian principles, and global stability. This reflects Beijing's growing confidence in projecting soft power, in aligning itself with international public opinion, especially among developing and Muslim-majority countries, on issues where U.S. policies have become controversial. All of these developments are converging to redraw traditional lines of power, alliances, and trust. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, by institutionalizing mutual defense, are essentially saying, we may not always rely on distant powers. We may have to build new security architectures. One that could include defense cooperation, technology sharing, capacity building, and possible nuclear deterrence, all under terms largely defined by regional players themselves. For countries like India, the implications are direct and urgent. The pact changes defense calculations, border tensions, and diplomatic postures. If Saudi Arabia is indeed under Pakistan's nuclear umbrella, what does that mean for India's deterrence, its strategic depth, and its diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia? Analysts say India will have to adjust. In sum, what we saw in mid-September 2025 is not simply another diplomatic agreement. It may be the start of a larger shift toward regional multipolarity. The kind of global order where security isn't anchored solely in U.S. power or promises, but in regional alliances, nuclear deterrence, mutual defense, and states asserting autonomy. The kind of order where moral credibility and international law matter perhaps as much as military strength. Whether this Saudi-Pakistan pact becomes a model for a broader Muslim security network, or simply another chapter in shifting alliances, depends on how it is implemented, on how other regional players respond, and on how global powers react. But make no mistake, this is more than symbolism. It is a marker of a changing era.